I had really hoped that given the crime crisis, given really the results of the election nationally, where Republicans saw gains campaigning on law and order issues, I had really hoped that Democrats would not spend this legislative session pushing pro-criminal policies, but I was wrong. This segment is brought to you in partnership with our friends over at Future 42. Turn your frustration into action at future42.org. All right, so there was a hearing that happened on Monday in the House Community Safety Committee. And they were looking at 3 different bills, all of them pro-criminal bills. Not a lot of care or concern for victims of crime, not a lot of care or concern for the crime crisis that we have on our hands. And I could play you a bunch of cuts, but honestly, I just want to play this one cut of a woman who testified in favor of one of the bills that illustrates to you essentially what the entire hearing was like.
Allowing sentencing reviews for emerging adults acknowledges their inherent potential for growth and transformation. It aligns with our current understandings of brain development and criminological research and reflects that Washington values redemption founded on science over retribution cloaked in implicit bias, and would be a significant step towards eradicating systemic racism in our criminal legal system.
Yeah, so it's retribution. To want to put violent criminals in prison, to give them appropriate sentences, even if they're juveniles, this is just retribution. And it's racist and it's implicit bias and all of these things. I mean, that language was dripping throughout the entire hearing. And I have to say, as someone who crime is right at the top of my list, I would say is 1 or 2 at the top of my list. It's heartbreaking to watch victims be so underrepresented, so sort of tossed aside in the conversation about criminal justice reforms. You know, the ranking Republican on that committee is Representative Jenny Graham, whose sister was killed by the Green River Killer. And so certainly that's someone who I want on the Community Safety Committee, who I know is going to advocate for crime victims. And I'm sure that Representative Graham would not mind me sharing with you that she called me pretty upset yesterday. And really what she was upset about is, again, what she saw and what anyone who watches the hearing would see as a lack of care for victims and a lack of consideration for victims. And after I talked to her, I then went back and watched the hearing because I hadn't seen it on Monday. I mean, obviously it was Inauguration Day, and so there were other things going on. And I'm really glad she gave me a call because I will say right now, I think this is the most troublesome bill this entire session that I've seen so far. And there's a lot of doozies because it shows an unwillingness to use common sense. It shows how extreme Washington's Democratic Party has become. And it shows, make no mistake, that they are interested in putting criminals, even violent, horrible criminals, ahead of law-abiding Washingtonians. This is truly, I think, the worst bill so far that I've seen. So I want to, I'm going to read part of it, but I want to play in part of the committee hearing that I think really helps illustrate how bad it is. So this is House Bill 1178. I want you to remember that number. I want you to do your own research into this bill as well. I want you to go read it. House Bill 1178. And it has to do with sentencing enhancements. And I think one of the really troublesome things about this bill is it is being spearheaded by Representative Roger Goodman, who's the chair of the Public Safety Committee. So you have the chair of the Public Safety Committee, a committee that we're supposed to believe is keeping us safe, introducing such a crazy bill. So what it does is it looks at altering sentencing enhancements. So under Washington state law, obviously you have sort of the standards for sentencings for various crimes, but there are certain crimes that are considered, maybe more egregious, more problematic in the way that they were committed, that there's enhancements that can go along with them. For instance, if you use a gun in the commission of a crime, you can get a mandatory firearm enhancement of 5 years. Because in this state, we take gun crime seriously, right? So yeah, you use a gun to hurt someone, not only are you getting sentenced for the underlying crime, whether it's an armed robbery or a drive-by shooting, you could also get, and you should also get, a mandatory firearm enhancement. And that's the way that our state law and our state, I guess, is sending a message to people who actually use guns to commit crimes. Like, hey, we're going to tag an extra 5 years onto your sentence just for doing your crime with a gun. And by the way, you can't get any good time on that 5 years. You're going to have to serve every day of those 5 years. And you're going to serve it concurrently to your sentence for the crime you committed. So let's say you got 15 years for an armed robbery, which probably isn't happening in the state anymore. Get that, and then tagged onto the back of that, 5 more years for the firearm enhancement. Not concurrently. So we have those sorts of enhancements built into law. What this bill does, House Bill 1178, and we're going to get in the weeds here, but I promise you, it will make you sick to your stomach, what I'm about to share with you, that has gone, I think, pretty unnoticed in the media. So what the bill does is it alters the sentencing enhancements that are already on the books. So this isn't a new law, it modifies existing law. So the laws that have all the sentencing enhancements, it's basically penned through some of them. Eliminating certain sentencing enhancements, easing punishments for certain sentencing enhancements, allowing certain sentencing enhancements to have good time so you don't have to serve the entire enhancement. I'm going to play you a 2-minute clip. So this is staff in the Public Safety Committee that's explaining, first you'll hear her explain existing law. And then at the back end, she'll explain how House Bill 1178 modifies existing law around sentencing enhancements.
I have brought this bill forward. I will ask staff to provide a brief summary.
Good afternoon, committee members. Again, for the record, Michelle Rusk, staff to this committee. Before you is House Bill 1178 concerning sentencing enhancements. For your background, sentences for most felony offenses are determined by reference to a sentencing grid, which provides a standard range of months of confinement. Additional sentencing policies may increase or decrease that sentence, including most relevant here, sentencing enhancements. Washington law provides for different types of sentencing enhancements, which add varying time to a term of total confinement depending on factors including the felony classification of the offense and the number of specified prior offenses. While sentences for multiple criminal offenses are generally served concurrently, it is mandatory that certain sentencing enhancements must be served consecutively, which is referred to as stacking. The portion of a sentence attributed to the enhancement must be served in total confinement, is not eligible for partial release, and may not be reduced by earned release time. Relevant enhancements include those for committing an offense with a firearm or deadly weapon, impaired driving enhancements, which add time to a sentence for specified driving offenses while under the influence of alcohol or drugs, based on the number of a person's prior offenses or if a passenger under the age of 16 was in the defendant's vehicle. Sexual motivation enhancements, which add additional time when an offense was committed and one of the purposes was for sexual gratification. Controlled substances violation enhancements, which add time for an offense involving specified controlled substances violations and either involved manufacture of methamphetamine in the presence of a minor or was committed in a protected zone, and sentencing enhancements for involving a minor in a criminal street gang-related felony, which is described in greater depth in the bill analysis. Turning to the bill before you, 2 sentencing enhancements are eliminated: the enhancement for certain controlled substances violations committed in protected zones, and the enhancement for involving a minor in a criminal street gang-related felony. Mandatory stacking is eliminated for firearms and deadly weapons enhancements, and enhancements for controlled substances violations related to manufacture of methamphetamine in the presence of a minor. The following sentencing enhancements are eligible for partial confinement and earned early release, including those for firearms and deadly weapons, impaired driving, and sexual motivation.
So that was a lot. I want to break that apart bit by bit so you can understand how truly disgusting it is. How truly disgusting it is that you have lawmakers in Olympia who would dedicate time this session to trying to ease punishments for some of the worst criminal offenders in the state. So again, you've got the enhancements that exist in state law. You commit a certain kind of crime, there's an enhancement for that because we take it very seriously and we want to send a message, gun crimes or whatever. So again, she describes the enhancements in existing law that will be eliminated.
Turning to the bill before you, 2 sentencing enhancements are eliminated: the enhancement for certain controlled substances violations committed in protected zones, and the enhancement for involving a minor in a criminal street gang-related felony.
Think of the crime crisis we have with juveniles, the gang crisis we have with juveniles. They want to, if you are an adult gang member and you recruit a juvenile, a kid, to be engaged in your criminal conduct, they want to take away the enhancement that under law today you face for doing that. How many times have we seen that? Where you've got a group of gang members arrested for something, and the youngest one of them is the one who committed the most serious aspect of the crime. And we've said it on the show. The older gang members do that on purpose because they tell them, you'll get out on your 21st birthday if you're caught. You won't get caught, but if you are, they'll set you free. In Washington State, they're not going to hold you accountable. So they'll have them commit the worst aspect of the crime at a young age. That's such dangerous predatory behavior that you would not only pull this young person into a life of crime, but you would convince them to commit crimes on your behalf as a gang member. And the state of Washington Democrats in the Public Safety Committee want to take away the enhancement that gang member would face for doing that. That's nuts. That is a sick and twisted way of thinking that I cannot understand. So not only do they want to take it easy on juvenile gang members, but they want to take it easy on adult gang members who recruit the juvenile gang members. How is that going to solve anything? And then again, these are the enhancements where there will no longer be mandatory stacking, meaning if you have more than one enhancement, you would have had to, under the law, it would be stacked. So you're going to serve both of those. Oh, no longer mandatory.
Mandatory stacking is eliminated for firearms and deadly weapons enhancements and enhancements for controlled substances violations related to manufacture of methamphetamine in the presence of a minor.
They singled that out. In a state that cares so much about gun violence, no more mandatory stacking of firearm enhancements, and no more mandatory, that second one. If you're manufacturing meth in the presence of a minor, Democrats in Olympia are crafting a bill that will make sure that your enhancements for that aren't as bad. Who seeks that out and singles that out and says, hey, we've got the sentencing enhancement where if you're making meth and a kid's present, you get a little more time in prison. Let's make sure that's not a mandatory stacking enhancement. Again, this is nuts stuff. And then they also changed, as you heard her say, the enhancements that you can get. 'Cause remember, right now, like firearm enhancement, that's 5 years solid. You're not getting a day of good time that's earned on that time. They want to change that for a few crimes.
The following sentencing enhancements are eligible for partial confinement and earned early release, including those for firearms and deadly weapons, impaired driving, and sexual motivation.
Sexual motivation enhancement. They are seeking out the sexual motivation enhancement so that if that's added to your sentence, you can earn good time on it. Oh, no matter that you're a sexual predator, you earned good time on that sexual motivation enhancement. Again, I mean, this is insane stuff. And the media, the Washington State media is not covering this. And average citizens aren't diving that deep into a bill. Again, House Bill 1178. The sponsors of it, Goodman, Hackney, Simmons, Tara Simmons, not a surprise there, and Peterson, spending valuable time going through our existing sentencing enhancements and crossing them out. I mean, it's true. When you look at, I cannot wrap my mind around lawmakers, especially lawmakers on a public safety committee, prioritizing or even thinking about anything like this. And you know who I thought of when I saw this? And again, I'm so grateful that Representative Graham called me yesterday and tipped me off to this because I had not heard about it. There's so many bad bills out there. I immediately thought of Wendy Traynor. We covered this case 2 years ago now, I think, down in Pierce County, where a guy named Josh Ellis had been handed this sweetheart plea deal despite confessing to shooting his estranged girlfriend in the back of the head. And prosecutors didn't even charge him with a firearm enhancement. They didn't even include that because they gave him this sweetheart deal. And so now they want to kind of make that the norm. No firearm enhancements for you. It's like, if you do get one, you can earn good time on it. And so I actually, before the show today, I called Wendy Traynor's family. I talked to her aunt just to kind of tip her off to this because I didn't want her to hear me talk about it on the show and they didn't know about this bill and feel like absolutely blindsided by it. It's just absolutely disgusting stuff. And then on top of all of that, because one of the things I'd point out is the hypocrisy. Again, that's a theme of today's show, right? Hypocrisy. That you have this state, a governor now, a former governor, who they are so proud of the gun control laws they've put forth. They are so proud of the laws they put forth that make things more difficult for law-abiding gun owners and haven't done anything to reduce crimes committed with a gun. I mean, just yesterday, this is honest to God on Governor Inslee, former Governor Inslee's Instagram account. He's posting all these he's calling them evergreen moments, all these things he's bragging about that he's accomplished. One of them up on his Instagram right now is preventing gun violence. And he brags about, he has all these headlines on there. Oh, banning AR-15 style rifles, banning high capacity magazines and ghost guns, universal background checks, extreme risk protection orders. So all these things over 12 years, he says 30 days, 30 highlights to celebrate 12 years of progress in Washington. Think about that. 12 years of progress. Did we see progress on gun crimes over 12 years? No. Did we see progress on reducing the number of shootings or individual instances of shots fired in 12 years? No. During the 12 years that Jay Inslee was in office and Bob Ferguson was Attorney General, prioritizing a ban on high-capacity magazines, universal background checks, extreme risk protection orders, ban on sale of semi-automatic rifles, creation of the Office of Firearm Safety, open carry regulations, unsafe storage liability. They did all of that in 12 years. Homicides doubled. The instances of shooting and shots fired are through the roof. So all these gun control bills they did, now he's celebrating it as 12 years of progress on guns? When no such progress has been made, and at the very same time, Democrats in Olympia today are pushing a bill to ease punishments for people who use a gun to commit a crime. People like Josh Ellis, who is so mad that his girlfriend decided to leave him, that he followed her across the country to the apartment she just moved into, moving boxes still littering the entryway, and he shot her in the back of the head and he left her for dead. Those are the kind of people. The guy who killed Wendy Traynor. Those are the kind of people Democrats in Olympia are fighting for today. Not Wendy. Not other people who are the actual victim of gun violence. For as much as the left talks about and preaches about preventing gun violence, why aren't they in Olympia standing up for people like Wendy? Why are they standing up for people like Josh Ellis, who took a gun and shot her in the back of the head? That's whose side they're on? It can't be spun any other way. We'll invite Roger Goodman on the show. He's been on the show before. There's no way to spin this other than it being a pro-crime bill. The absolute hypocrisy of spending 12 years talking about your progress on gun control and gun crimes. Yeah, the only thing you have made progress on is controlling guns, controlling the ability of people to purchase and use guns lawfully. But when it comes to the people who are actually using guns to commit crimes, you haven't done anything in that regard. You've made it worse, and then you're trying to lessen their sentences when they actually are prosecuted. How anyone keeps voting for this, I can't understand. It makes no sense to me. I don't know how to wake people up. I understand that this is so in the weeds. I mean, it's already 1 o'clock. We're not even a third of the way through the show. I probably just spent 30 minutes on that. I understand that not every newscast in Seattle has 30 minutes to spend breaking down a single bill in Olympia. But this is the kind of stuff that they're pushing constantly. Trying to reduce punishments for sexually motivated crimes, and they say they're the party of, like, believing women? Trying to make it less bad for gang members to recruit kids to commit crimes for them? What is going on? Again, I hate to put it on, It's intentional. It has to be intentional. I don't know any other explanation than they're trying to make you feel so unsafe that you crawl to the government to help you feel safe. And you'll increase taxes, you'll do whatever they want because you just feel so unsafe. And they're the ones that made you feel that way in the first place. It's just crazy stuff. All right, that segment was brought to you in partnership with our friends at Future 42. Turn your frustration into action. Lord knows I got a lot of it today at future42.org.